Kansas State shocked the nation last year by going 10-4 and winning the Big 12 championship over previously undefeated TCU. But now nobody is going to be sleeping on the Wildcats. So the million-dollar question is, can they do it again in 2023? That's what we're here to answer today. So welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, guys. We're so glad that you could join us today as we break down everything you need to know about Kansas State football heading into the season, and of course sharing our official prediction for the Wildcats. As always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and check out everything down in the description below, including our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. Some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the country over there, beating out 80% of the national analysts and handicappers each of the last 5 years. Do not want to miss out on that. And don't miss out on our Patreon account as well. We have a lot of exclusive content over on Patreon. We have our Patreon Wall of Fame with the guys that have already signed up. And we want you to become a part of that. We want you to take advantage of that exclusive content, exclusive offers, and help our community grow. Because at the end of the day, guys, we want you to become a part of our GE Nation. So check out everything down in the description below. We take a look at Kansas State. Let's dive into it. I love this team. I love the culture. I loved the story last year. Chris Klieman has done an amazing job with the Wildcats since he took over in Manhattan. But you go into this year, obviously a team with a handful of questions, right? Coming off a 10-win season, the Big 12 title. Can they do it again? Will they lose? Arguably their biggest playmaker in Deuce Vaughn, a guy who had over 1,900 total yards last year, 12 touchdowns last season. The good thing that Kansas State does have, despite losing Deuce Vaughn, the one thing they have going for them is a veteran quarterback under center. Will Howard was kind of thrust onto the scene last year, coming in the middle of that TCU game in the regular season, finished the year from then on out, 15 touchdowns, just 4 interceptions, led the team to that Big 12 title. 8 starters back on offense for Kansas State, so a lot of talent still there despite a handful of key losses. Defensively, Kansas State typically strong on that side of the ball. 5 starters back there after giving up just 21.9 points per game. Linebacking core, very, very good. Austin Moore returns as the leading tackler. Daniel Green right there alongside him. That front seven can be pretty solid for Kansas State this year. Some may say they drop off a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be by that much. You take a look at the schedule for the Wildcats. It's pretty favorable. I will say that. It lines up well where maybe Kansas State could make a return trip to that Big 12 championship game. I do think they start off the year 2-0. They should beat Southeast Missouri, and they should beat Troy, although it should be noted they should not overlook Troy. Troy's a team that's riding an 11-game winning streak entering 2023, finished the year at 12-2 last season. Still a Kansas State team that last year lost to Tulane. We got our helmet back there for Tulane. Thank you to our guy Charles Lehigh. But again, this is a team that lost to Tulane last year at home. Would not be shocked to see Troy do the same, but I think Kansas State gets the job done. They don't overlook their Group of 5 opponent. 2-0 start for the Wildcats. Then they go on to Missouri, a team they beat 40-12 last year. That was an intriguing game, a battle between old Big 12 rivals. We hyped it up, and good Lord, Kansas State put a beating on them. This year, I'm going to say that doesn't happen. This year, I'm going to say Missouri actually wins this game. Now, I know many people might be shocked with that, but I like this Missouri team. They're sneaky good this year. 8 starters back on defense, and that's the difference maker, right? Missouri's issue is their offense. They don't really have much of a quarterback situation right now. They don't have a true great quarterback, right? But their defense is good enough to get the job done. I think by week 3, if Eli Drinkwitz figures out who his quarterback's going to be, whether it's Brady Cook or somebody else, Missouri has what it takes to win this game at home. 10 of the top 13 tacklers back on the defensive side of the ball. The offense does have 7 starters back, so Brady Cook's still a guy that has experience. He's nothing great, but he can get the job done, especially like he did towards the end of last year. I like Missouri to pull off this upset at home. 28-point swing. I'm calling for it. Missouri wins in week 3. Kansas State takes their first loss of the year. They bounce back, though. They beat UCF in week 4. It's going to be UCF's first Big 12 game, so a pretty monumental moment for them. Unfortunately for them, it doesn't come at home, and unfortunately for them, their first Big 12 game, your welcome to the conference moment is by facing the reigning conference champion at their own house, and Kansas State's not going to allow that. I think Kansas State's going to be like, hey, UCF, welcome to the league, and they're going to take down the Knights on September 23rd. I like this UCF team, but the defense still a little bit shaky to me. If Kansas State can contain John Rice Plumlee, and I believe they will, they win this game. Kansas State moves on to 3-1 before they take their early bye week at the end of September, meaning they're going to have to play 8 straight games to close out the year. And that's going to be tough. No one likes to do that. They come out of the bye week, though, to take on Oklahoma State on a Friday night game in Stillwater. If you remember, last year, it was a beatdown. Top 25 matchup between Kansas State and Oklahoma State. The Cowboys at the time were in the top 10. Kansas State won 48-0. 48-0. I think it was the largest shutout victory for a lower-ranked team over a top 10 team in history. It was unbelievable. So Kansas State wins 48-0. I don't see a 48-point swing this year. I know we said there could be one for Missouri to Kansas State. There's no way Oklahoma State gets a 48-point swing just because they're at home. I'm not too high on the Cowboys this year. They're good enough. Probably going to go bowling. I love Mike Gundy. But this is a team that actually is going to be just about the same, if maybe not a little bit worse, than they were in 2022. Still have a lot of questions offensively for Oklahoma State. The defense still kind of up and down right now. It feels like they kind of lack an identity. Kansas State, coming off that week of rest, they know who they are. They know what they need to win. They know what they need to win or need to do to beat Oklahoma State. So while the game is, in my opinion, a little bit closer, I do think Kansas State wins on the road against a Cowboys team that right now is, I think, struggling to find out who exactly they are. So big win for Kansas State out of that bye week. They are now 4-1. They go on the road to take on Texas Tech after that. A Red Raiders team, they beat 37-28 in 2022. But I will say that at this point in the year, this Texas Tech team will probably be the toughest offense that Kansas State has seen. Think about it. No other team prior to Texas Tech is going to have an offense electric enough and on the same level as the Red Raiders. The closest one to that would honestly be UCF on September 23rd. The Red Raiders are good. Last year, a big surprise, winning 8 games in year 1 of Joey McGuire. Now they're going to Lubbock, where everybody comes back on offense, an offense that averaged over 300 passing yards per game last year. Kansas State loses 3 key pieces in their secondary. I think the Red Raiders win this game at home by attacking the Wildcats through the air. Arguably their toughest challenge yet through the season. Texas Tech gets the job done. October 21st, they take on TCU. Gotta love that one, right? So second loss of the year, but should be noticed only one conference loss for Kansas State. So still very much in the mix for a Big 12 title. They faced TCU. Last 2 games last year were great. The regular season game, Kansas State probably should have won, but they were just dealt injury after injury after injury. TCU came back and won 38-28. Kansas State got the revenge, arguably in the game that mattered the most, beating them in the Big 12 championship game 31-28 in overtime. So, you look at it last year, Kansas State, yes, they split the series. They went 1-1 last year. I really think Kansas State should have gone 2-0 against TCU. Now the Horned Frogs lose Max Duggan. They lose Kendra Miller. They lose Quentin Johnston. They have a lot of key pieces to replace offensively, and the defense wasn't all that good to begin with. The game's in Manhattan. I don't see how Kansas State loses this game. I love them against TCU, giving me the win there. And give me the win against Houston as well the following week. First meeting between Kansas State and the Cougars, so it should be a fun one. But, again, it's a Houston team that right now defensively could struggle a lot. I think it's going to be a really big game for Will Howard. I really do. This is a Houston secondary that was giving up over 279 passing yards per game last year. The defense really isn't going to be all that great. It's at home in Manhattan for Kansas State. It's a Houston team that might even struggle to make a bowl game in their first year in the Big 12. The Wildcats get the win there. And again, this is still only just a 2-loss team heading into the month of November, and only a 1-loss team in conference play heading into the month of November. It's not in the realm of possibility, I think, that Kansas State could get back to that Big 12 championship game, because in the month of November, pretty favorable schedule, except for that first game on November 4th, where they have to travel to Texas. And I do think they drop their second conference game in Austin against the Longhorns. Kansas State, guys, they've been so close to taking down Texas year after year after year. They've lost 6 straight games to the Longhorns, but 5 of those 6 games have been decided by 1 possession, including last year at home. Kansas State found themselves down like 31-10, battled all the way back, ultimately lost 34-27 though. Now they're going to Austin to face a good Texas team, a Texas team with very high expectations, a very good offense, Quinn Ewers, a lot of his top pass catchers back, and a very underrated defense at that. Kansas State's going to give them everything they've got. I have no doubt about that. Chris Klieman and the Wildcats, I mean, to me, it's proven they're not really scared of anybody. They're not really scared of any environment. But Texas ultimately is going to be too good. And if the Longhorns are in a position to make a Big 12 title game, maybe even a college football playoff appearance, they can't afford a home loss by any means. Texas gets the job done there. So Kansas State takes their second loss of the year in conference play. But I do think they round out the season with 3 straight victories. I think they close out the year with 3 straight wins. They beat Baylor by 28 points last year on the road, 31-3. And while Baylor should be better this year. I do believe they will be. I don't think they're going to have enough to come on the road to beat this very solid and veteran Kansas State team. So give me the win over the Bears. They go on the road to take on Kansas. And look, that's going to be fun, right? This might be the most anticipated, maybe, high stakes Sunflower Showdown in like the last 15 years. It's going to be a big one, right? Kansas State, this vaunted defense against a very good Kansas offense. I mean, Kansas is certainly on the rise, no doubt about it. But Kansas State has beat Kansas 14 times in a row. They've won 14 straight games against the Jayhawks, including a 47-27 victory last year. I can't pick Kansas to win the game until it actually happens. I typically do that a lot with the rivalries. Back in the past, it was, will Michigan ever beat Ohio State? I couldn't pick Michigan to beat Ohio State until it finally happened. It did. Now I don't have an issue with it. But I can't pick the Jayhawks, even though they have home field advantage. Can't pick them to beat Kansas State until they finally do it. I don't think they're going to do it this year. I think Kansas State's still too good, still a little bit ahead of their in-state rivals. So they get the win over the Jayhawks, and they get the win over Iowa State, who they beat 10-9 last year. A very low-scoring defensive battle. Iowa State, another one of those teams that drastically improved. 4-8 last year, but had 6 one-possession losses. Iowa State was a much better team than people realize. They're more veteran this year, got a lot more experience this year. It's going to be a better season for Matt Campbell and the Cyclones. But ultimately, senior day in Manhattan against an Iowa State team that is improving, but still not quite where they need to be. Kansas State, on every aspect of this game, is the better team, and they will get the job done. With that, Kansas State concludes 2023 with a 9-3 record and a 7-2 record in conference play. Notice how they avoid Oklahoma. One of their losses to Texas, one of their losses to Texas Tech. Depending on what Oklahoma does, if they struggle like they did last year, it could become a 2-team race between Kansas State and Texas for that Big 12 title game. 2 losses in the regular season in Big 12 conference play is not going to eliminate them from title contention. It's going to come down to what Texas does. It's going to come down to what Oklahoma does, and maybe some other dark horse, whether it's Baylor or Texas Tech or TCU. But the Wildcats at 7-2 could flirt with another Big 12 title appearance, but regardless, they're going to be flirting with another double-digit win season. And if you're a Wildcats fan, if you're in Manhattan, you can't ask for much more than that. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and of course, check out everything down in the description below. We've got our expert picks over on thegridironexpert.com. We've got our Patreon account as well. Do not miss out on any of that exclusive content or any of the big-time winnings down in the description. Go take advantage of it and become a part of our GE Nation. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.